Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind Keys. So in today's video, we are going to be discussing a crucial life lesson, a crucial core distinction for you to learn and understand. And I hope you get a lot out of this video. And we're going to access it by kind of making an observation here off the bat that I think is pretty interesting. So have you ever noticed how a lot of spiritual people are actually kind of very rigid and dogmatic? Have you ever kind of met this archetype of these spiritual people who are a little bit holier than thou, and maybe they've had some like profound psychedelic experiences in their lives? Maybe they've had a lot of them. They've studied a lot of spirituality, but all that seems to have done is made them a little more kind of proud and certain about how life is, and kind of judgy of others who don't live the same way or don't believe the same thing they believe. And they get kind of preachy, or maybe you every time you ask for help, that spiritual person shows up in your social with some sort of like advice that's really preachy and uninvited and undesired and unwarranted. This kind of a thing. This is familiar to you. I know for me, as someone who grew up, in that kind of world and that kind of circle, and who I very much consider myself still New Age, but, spent all my youth like really deeply in that world. This is something I see a lot of amongst a lot of people I know, still as an issue. And I've noticed that it's very common for spiritual people to be very rigid, especially cognitively, especially about their understandings of life and the world. And there's a reason for that. And so I want to break that apart today and explain to you why this is, why spiritual people can be so damn rigid, stiff, uncool, judgy, and certain and preachy, because there's an underlying life lesson here for all of us about personal growth, awakening, evolving, transforming, to really unpack out of this. So let's go ahead and get into it. And just super briefly, for anyone who might be new to the channel, a warm welcome and hello to you. Hi, my name is Dave. I'm a coach. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm an NLP practitioner. And generally speaking on this channel, and for me in general, right now, my work is around psychedelics, personal development, self-healing, spiritual awakening, personal transformation work, self-actualization work, this kind of thing. And I'm really doing my best to kind of build a conversation here on the channel around these kinds of topics. So if that's of interest to you, then welcome. You're certainly in the right place. I'm stoked to have you aboard for the conversation. And thanks for watching and listening, and I hope you enjoy it. Oh, and by the way, I keep forgetting to say this in the video. There will be timestamps to every section of the video down below. So if you aren't someone who likes long videos, I've broken it up into pieces for you so you can, just get to the points that you might be more curious about. Okay, let's get it. So as I said in the intro of the video here, this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. I feel like this is a very important topic and something I want to start to speak out more about and start to offer as a message, because there are a lot of us out there who are spiritual. We're trying to make sense of these deep, profound experiences we've had. We've studied maybe different spiritual practices and paradigms and mindsets, and we've done the retreats, and we've read the books, and we've had the conversations, and we're doing the all the different things. And yet we're finding that maybe we're just a little rigid, we're a little dogmatic, we're a little stuck, we're, maybe our practices aren't getting us the results we want even, or maybe we're finding that people are just kind of put off by the way we're being. I know I went through a huge phase of this. So this I can share about from firsthand being inside it experience, which is generally all I communicate about, but this is something I know all too well. and it's really there's a crucial life lesson at the heart of this that I want to start to teach you guys, because it's so important for your own personal empowerment, your own continuing on your path and advancing forward, so that you don't get stuck with some level of growth. You have some breakthrough, whether it's a spiritual growth or psychological healing, or, a life breakthrough, and then you just kind of plateau and you just kind of stay at that stage forever. That's no good. We're meant to grow. We're meant to evolve. We're meant to continually transform and up level and heal and resolve, problem solve and expand and maximize our life potential. I truly believe in that. So what am I talking about here? There is a distinction, and this is a crucial core NLP distinction. When I say it, you'll probably recognize it. And that is, the map is not the territory, right? And this is actually an old saying, an old piece of teaching from a mathematician. So this predates neurolinguistic programming. I believe this goes back to the 30s, if I'm not mistaken. Alfred Korzybski coined the phrase. He's a mathematician. And he was the first one to kind of start to articulate this concept of the map not being the territory. That might seem a little abstract to you. What that means is there's a huge difference, for example, between driving down the coastal highway through the redwoods, winding on these beautiful mountain roads, trees all around you, sunlight, hawks circling in the air, ocean spray on the coast, whatever it might be, some sort of beautiful experience of being in a car on the road with the music and whoever you're driving with. There's a huge difference between that and looking at that same road on a map, right? The map is not the territory. You can look at a map. It's a representation. It's an approximation. It's a symbol. In the same way that a word is a symbol for a thing or an experience, a map is a symbol for the experience of being in an actual place. Another way of saying the map is not the territory is saying, don't eat the menu at the restaurant. Right? Like you don't go to a restaurant and look at the picture of, the food you want and then, eat the picture. You don't pick up the page, rip the page out of the menu and eat it. That's not what you're ordering. What you're ordering is actual food. The menu is not the food. The map is not the territory, right? And when it comes to spirituality and spiritual awakening and spiritual people, this is also true with psychology. This is also true with philosophy. This is also true with life perspectives and your own conclusions. This is also true when you have some sort of crazy kind of new concept about yourself that comes up from a psychedelic trip. It's all the same thing here. Any of these conclusions or beliefs are maps. And the major mistake I see spiritual people making over and over and over again is confusing the map for the territory. Bar none. This is what keeps people rigid. This is what keeps people stuck, or turning them into zealots that go harder and harder into a certain perspective, and they preach it to everyone, and they're kind of annoying in their point of view. Hopefully I'm not that person, but they're annoying in their point of view, about what it is they believe. And in their social, it's always the same ideology or the same belief system or the same spiritual point or the same, preachy bullshit over and over and over. This is what creates that effect. It's people confusing their map for the territory of the experience that map is trying to describe. So you have a spiritual experience, right? You have some sort of mystical experience of some sort, right? And then you read about it in a book, or you see a video on YouTube from a teacher who, a spiritual teacher of some sort, or you go do a workshop about it even, and you learn more about it. And in any of these, what will happen is you will be given a map to try to make sense of your raw experiential input that you had, your experience, right? The territory. And this map might do a good job for a while of trying to sum up, and you'll do some reconciling and kind of matching or mismatching. Does this map fit my experience? And if the map fits your experience well enough, generally you'll take it in. And then for a lot of people, that's the end of the story. We have a map now that explains that experience. The map is good. The map is one-to-one accurate with the experience. How could it be any other way? But if you stop and you think about it, life doesn't work like that. Life is subtle, full of nuance, multifaceted. Human experience is always shape-shifting and changing, and again, full of nuance, full of subtlety, full of things we aren't even acknowledging, experiencing about our own experience, right? And a lot of times we just learn enough of a map to feel like we're not stuck with mystery, so that we're not like spinning our brain trying to figure it out. Someone else figured it out for us. We just take that definition and that's it. And we don't think beyond it. And we don't allow ourselves to be in the territory. So all of a sudden we're in the map. We're not in the territory. We're in the map now. And this creates rigidity. This creates, like I said, this creates a way of being where we end up operating through confirmation bias to try to fit in all the experience that we have back into the map. I'll give a great personal example for myself. My first, attempt at understanding human beings, at exploring psychology, at exploring spirituality, exploring the human experience, was learning astrology. I learned astrology when I was probably 12, give or take, from a teacher of mine in school who started teaching me about it, and then I started reading about it and nerding out about it. By the time I was, let's say, 20, I was a complete astrology nerd, and I was trying to fit everything I experienced, most of all the people around me and their behaviors and their ways of being and all the intricacies of their personality into a map and a model of astrology. And I became a total astrology zealot. And I used to call it, I had my astrology goggles on, and they were like glued onto my fucking face. I could not take them off. I could not see the world not in an astrological view. Couldn't do it. Couldn't just engage the mystery. But here's the problem. There was a lot of experiences I had that fell outside of what astrology said should be the case, about people's characteristics and personality traits, about world events and things happening, about life events for myself and things happening for myself. There were a lot of things that happened that did not line up with any particular astrology and did not match the narrative that the astrology was giving me. There were also, weird counterexamples I started to learn about, at the same time as also studying Hinduism and reading about yogis and, saints and, crazy, weird enlightenment experiences. And there are, in India, it's well known that there are yogis who can transcend their karma to the point that astrology doesn't affect them anymore. That literally whatever the astrological influences that I was tracking and paying attention to was of no bearing on their life experience, which from someone inside the astrological perspective and point of view, that's insane. That's crazy talk. That's impossible because everything is being impacted by these energies that are coming towards the earth, right? So I spent years trying to reconcile these, right? How do I have this apparent truth with astrology, but then also I have, all these experiences that are outside of that truth. And I would try to make sense of them and fit them back inside that map of astrology to make sense of it. And eventually I just had to admit that there are exceptions to the rules, which means that there is territory beyond the map, right? There's raw life experience that doesn't necessarily fit with what astrology describes. So there's a limitation to what astrology can say about life around us or about ourselves or, et cetera, et cetera. Like it is not a full high resolution rendering of our reality. It might be a useful tool in moments. I'm not saying it's not, just saying that it's not necessarily a perfect descriptor. So then, that kind of implies that you need to return to the territory. And this is one of the key lessons here I want to impart in this conversation with you guys, is that you want to continue to be returning to the territory of direct experiential learning over and over and over, and hold whatever maps or learnings you have, whether they're from studying psychology, whether they are from studying spirituality, whether they are from psychedelic experiences you had and your whatever your conclusions about that were, whether they are ideologies and political beliefs you have, whether they are things you learned in college, whether they are things you learned in self-study on your own, ways of thinking, rules of debate. That's another big one. People get all rigid about the rules of debate, and that's fallacy, et cetera, right? There's tons of these out there. And what you will find most of all when you look around you is people stuck inside their own maps. And the limitations of your map will define your limitations of what you perceive as possible unless you hold the map loosely. And maybe even learn a bunch of different maps and compare and contrast them and kind of sift through these different maps of understanding and explanation for the same experience. So this is a lot of what I've done in my own healing path, my own awakening path, my own personal transformation, personal growth path, as I've studied different forms of psychology and hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming and self-help and ayahuasca circles and, psychedelic therapy and boy, oh boy, you name it. Like I said, astrology and Hinduism and Buddhism and meditation and yada, yada, philosophy, yada, 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 right? Like, you want to take in as many maps as you can, or both, and you want to hold the maps that you have loosely. And when there's a mismatch between life and the map, go with life. If you learn something new, if you have a new experience that falls outside of what you currently think is real or possible, or doesn't make sense inside the paradigm that you're viewing it inside of, it's time to expand to a bigger paradigm. That's a sign. That is a communication from life itself that your paradigm is limited and it's time to outgrow it and expand beyond. It doesn't mean you can't hold all the things that you used to believe were true inside this new, bigger paradigm, because the bigger paradigm will, hold the smaller paradigm inside it. But you want to continue to expand to a larger paradigm of life. So let me just go over my notes really quick here. Right. So I know I said this, but I want to just kind of reiterate this point, kind of highlight it here. Your behavior comes out of your map of reality. So this is a huge piece of what they teach in neurolinguistic programming. One of the things they teach us, and one of the things we learn and play with, is that people's reactions are not to what happens, but to the meaning they make out of what happens. Now that's a fucking deep thing to think about. Consider that all the problems you have in your life and all the issues don't exist for you at the level of whatever you experienced. They exist for you at the level of the meaning you have made about that experience, whether that meaning happened automatically and unconsciously, or whether that meaning was maybe a little more conscious and you realized you were kind of making up your mind about a person, place, or experience, right? Think about that. People react to their maps of life much more than they actually react to life itself, right? Now, bringing this back to spirituality, which is the beginning of this conversation, why are spiritual people rigid? Why are spiritual people dogmatic? Why are spiritual people preachy? Why are spiritual people kind of like, weird in this way? Well, it's because they confuse their map for reality, right? And most people do. But as you learn how to let go of your map and hold it loosely and just experience reality directly and get more maps and try out different maps with different perspectives, it will radically enrich your flexibility, your adaptability, your centeredness, your happiness, your open-mindedness, your ability to not struggle with issues, your ability to grow, to evolve, to find new solutions, to find different ways of coming to better conclusions and better solutions in your life. Your map limits all of that. And so this is a huge place where people get stuck on the personal growth path, on the personal development path. Whether it is, let's say you're kind of a personal development junkie and you're coming at it from the kind of optimization, life hacking kind of angle, right? There's a lot of these people out there. There's a lot of that on YouTube. And a lot of these people get hung up on being mechanistic, on being materialistic, on everything is about chemistry and everything's about rationality and everything's about, fallacies and cognitive biases and debate structures and, this kind of a thing. And people get hyper logical and hyper rational about it. And these tools of rationality and logic and, all this kind of stuff, learning to think in this way about optimization, optimizing your own thought, your own behavior becomes your own fucking cage, where all of a sudden you've optimized everything, but you're busy all day optimizing things, right? Or, you are rigid mentally because everything has to fit inside your map, that everything has to be logical and rational, and there can't be any thought fallacies, and there can't be any et cetera, right? Everything's a debate. I mean, even just thinking in terms of fallacies frames everything implicitly as debate. But is all communication debate? Hell no. There's so much out here in terms of human experience that has nothing to do with debate. So by creating that map, then formatting everyone inside of that, all of a sudden you're the asshole that's debating with everyone. And that limits your growth. That limits your expansion. That limits your capacity to learn more, to be more, to experience more. That pares your nervous system down from its wide scope of possibilities down to just a small set of behaviors. And I get that's comforting because it's easy, it's repeatable, it's reassuring to know that you know how to do you in a certain way. But it also becomes dull and boring and repetitive and lifeless and narrow very quick, right? Same thing with spirituality. It's like, if you are clinging to a certain spiritual view or a certain set of spiritual views, and you haven't really examined them and you haven't really challenged them and you haven't really thought about where they're not true or what might be other explanations that explain what it is you're seeing or thinking about, then all of a sudden you become that person, right? You become that person who only has one way of being. Spiritual people wonder all the time, why do I have money issues? Why am I unhappy? Why are people mean to each other in the world? Why is there suffering in the world? There's all these questions that spiritual people can't fucking wrap their heads around because they're stuck inside their own map. And it just becomes a cast. It becomes a cage. It becomes maybe a pretty comforting cage, but a cage nonetheless where people are rigidly stuck with a set of beliefs, And if you're someone who's watching my channel, who you're here because of the self-healing content, right? You're here because of anxiety or depression or PTSD or a problem that you're wanting help solving. Maybe you're interested in psychedelics for that. And that's more your interest with this channel. Think about the areas of your life where you're stuck. Whether it's you're stuck on your healing path, or you're stuck, with money or with relationships or with, health or with exercise and fitness, or you're stuck with self-confidence, whatever. I mean, we all get stuck in all kinds of different places. Consider what your map is about the area where you're stuck. And really consider, separating your raw experience and your set of possibilities from the map you've been living inside of, and make that distinction. Oh, I'm living according to a map in this area of my life. That map might need revision. It might need to be more fine and refined. It might need to be clarified. It might need to be thrown out altogether and recreated. I might need a brand new map in this area of my life. If I'm having, issues when it comes to exercise and fitness, or, diet and nutrition and how I feel, I might need to really radically revise my understandings. And then, again, hold that loose afterwards. Don't, trade one old map for a new one and then be rigid about the new one, which is what most people do. You want to continue to be flexible about this and really continue to give yourself the space to, again, expand your paradigm further, expand your paradigm further, expand your paradigm further, and that's how you level up. You level yourself up by growing your paradigm, and you grow your paradigm by letting go of your map of reality and embracing reality and embracing more of the wholeness of your experience and all those weird exceptions that you haven't been able to kind of, reconcile and fit inside your map, there's a reason for that. And you want to pay attention to those kind of fringe exceptions and cases and doubts and questions, and allow that to inform a bigger, broader, deeper, more robust, more clear, more accurate understanding of yourself, of life around you, of the universe we live in, of reality. The truth is that, I guess I'm kind of summarizing here. I've been kind of going off for a while here. Clearly, this is an area of a lot of passion. This is a message from my heart to you, truly, because I've been that fucking guy. I've been the fucking guy who is dogmatic, who's rigid, who's preachy, who's trying to force other people to fit inside my map of my spiritual beliefs. Who is narrow my perspective, not understanding why the things I don't understand don't make sense, and blaming, life or the world or others for the things I don't understand, rather than expanding my map to account for those, right? I've been that person. I've gotten those results. I know what happens when that's, the approach. But I want to just encourage you here to continue to let go of your map enough to hold it loosely. You don't have to abandon it to expand, like a lizard shedding its skin or expanding beyond its skin. We molt our maps, if you will, and kind of regrow a new one that's bigger, that's healthier, that's cleaner, that's clearer. And you want to be doing this regularly. This is an important part of self-development, of personal growth, of personal mastery. And as you get good at it, as you continue to evolve and grow and get better at it, what you'll find is that you'll find more and more that it's the wise approach to just be very loose with your map. That's why you get these Zen masters who just say nothing and they just kind of smile in wisdom, right? They realize any articulation or attempt to put, the divine down into a set of words to communicate to their students or whoever they're interacting with is going to filter it into a map that can be misunderstood, that can be distorted, that can be low resolution, that will never get at the clarity and the wholeness of understanding, right? And so I just want to encourage you to think about this, to consider this, how the map is not the territory, how the menu is not the meal, if you will, and start to recognize your own maps and where they're limiting you in life, and be willing to explore new maps. Either add more detail in your map, get learning about the thing that you're stuck with, be willing to throw it out altogether, be willing to challenge the assumptions inside that part of your map, right? There's nothing wrong with having maps of reality. That's what I was going to say. Human beings do this. This is what we do. This is our survival thing, right? So in nature, tigers have claws and camouflage and big teeth, right? And giraffes have long necks to reach food way up in trees, and, et cetera, et cetera. Every animal has its adaptive advantage. Ours is making these symbolic maps. This is all part of having language and a linguistic brain. We make these symbolic maps of life, and then we relate to the map more than the raw experience, because it's a shorthand. It summarizes and shrinks down all the complexity and the chaos of life into something manageable, right? But it also limits you. It also binds you. It also controls you. It also stifles you and stops you from growing and evolving and transforming and healing and leveling up in every possible way. So I'm going to sign off there. Thank you for watching. If you got this far into the video, I realize I make long videos. I personally love long form content, but I know not everyone does. But I hope that this message has kind of opened your mind a bit and helped you to reconsider why you might be stuck and where you might be stuck in your life. Helped you to understand why other people around you might be kind of rigid and dogmatic and stuck in their own ways of being and kind of not treating you the way you would like to be treated or in a way that seems right. And I hope that this video has started just kind of helped you understand a little bit more about your own mind. and the way that you can start to work with your mind to level up your own life. There's so much here in working with the map. And this, as a metaphor, is a very deep metaphor, but even this metaphor itself, even everything I just communicated to you, is not the whole of the reality of it. Again, this is also just a using words and a metaphor to try to convey a deeper truth here. So I encourage you to explore the deeper truth itself for yourself and discover what you find and how it helps you to heal and grow and awaken further. So thanks for watching. Much love to you all. I really wish you all the best in life. And I've got more videos on the way shortly here. And yeah, take care. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you guys soon.